Hello everybody, it's been a little bit since I filmed a video, since I've been working on something a little bit bigger for this channel next month, and because of that, I haven't really had much time to say anything and release anything, so I kind of wanted to make just a small little video talking about everything I've been watching lately, some stuff that I think I probably will talk about in videos down the line, and some I don't think I will, but I have some thoughts, and I thought I'd share them kind of one big bulk video instead of a bunch of little tiny ones. So up ahead, I'm going to be talking about Supergirl. I'm going to be talking about Chainsmokercat. I'm going to be talking about the fake Camelot movies, the Avengers Doomsday trailer, the Malcolm in the Middle reunion show, the 100 Girlfriends Season 3, and End of Evangelion. Because I've watched those all semi-recently, and I just thought I'd make a little video talking about a couple thoughts and compiling it all together. So, if you want to stick around and hear some ramblings, you're at the right video. With that being said, let's get to the point and go talk about Supergirl.
Touche.
Alright, let's talk about Supergirl. And I think talking about Supergirl, we gotta immediately start with the critic reception and the public reception, which is mostly being negative. To an extent that I think it's actually a little bit much. I think that this movie is getting a lot more flack than a lot of other superhero movies that were about the same level of quality, mainly because it's the second movie in the DCU, and it's a kind of semi-sequel, semi-not sequel to Superman 2025. And there's been a wing of controversy to the entire DCU as a whole, and I think this is definitely the portion where it got the most flack for it so far with that controversy. Which isn't something I'm hugely going to talk about. I'm mainly going to talk about the actual movie itself, because that's what I'm more interested in talking about in this video, honestly. But I think the movie is fine. I think it gets a lot of hate and slack for being just fine, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I get why this movie kind of flopped. It's coming out too close to Spider-Man and other bigger movies like The Odyssey. It came out around the time as Toy Story 5, and if you're looking even at a younger audience, I'm pretty sure a Minions movie just came out. That's gonna drown this poor movie because of the time period it came out in. So I think part of its financial failings, well, at least personally, just in my own opinion, I think part of it is just the competition is way too steep for a 6 out of 10 superhero movie that's not grabbing the same attention as what's to come or what has come in these last little bit in theaters. So I think that's mainly the box office failure, in my opinion, on why it didn't do as well as some others. As for the movie itself, the villain, Leprosy Jeffrey Epstein, was okay. There's nothing hugely special about him as a villain. I don't think, the actual, his motives and goals and stuff are very straightforward, but they make sense, and, he's hateable. I was a little bit worried they weren't gonna kill him, though, with the idea of, you don't want to get revenge, but then this guy is a sex trafficker. So I'm not so sure about that. I feel like, the push towards revenge is always bad. It's not a bad message. In fact, I overall agree with it, which I think is a normal opinion. But anyway, I think the killing him at the end was the right thing to do, considering what he was like. And at its core, I think he was a pretty forgettable villain, and I think that's the reason. I watched the movie a couple days ago in theaters. I literally don't remember his name now. I don't remember it while filming this, and I think that goes to show how much of a memorable villain he is. I only remember him because I kept calling him Leprosy Jeffrey Epstein when talking about him with my friend after the movie. So that's the only reason I remember anything about him at all. As for, the rest of the movie, Lobo was very cool. A lot of people talked about Lobo as kind of the high point of this movie, and I can see why. He was pretty cool for what he was. He kind of is just Jason Momoa to an extent, playing Jason Momoa. At least personally, that's kind of how I, felt about it, but I think it kind of works here because he kind of overlaps enough into Lobo, and that, tough man persona. To be fair, maybe I'm mischaracterizing Jason Momoa, but it felt very much just like, you know, we got Lobo kind of there, and he's doing what you'd kind of expect of a live-action Lobo kind of role. I think Momoa did kill it. He does definitely have the look for Lobo. Kara herself, I think, is fine. I think her character arc through the movie is pretty overall decent. I don't have much to say about Kara, because I think they handled, like, the destruction of Krypton and, like, her relationship with, like, her family, I think, all pretty well. It's just, you know, it's okay. I will say, Crypto getting shot was like I just want to mention it because the scene looked kind of jank. I don't know if, like, anyone else who's seen this movie could, like, understand where I'm coming from, but it did really look like Crypto kind of, like, the CGI kind of crapped out there a bit, and I think that is an like, a kind of one issue I think Supergirl had was definitely, like, the color palette and, like, the art design element. It was a very, like, brownish, grayish movie for a movie that really didn't need to be, and I think that's another reason they got such high criticism. Overall, though, I think it's just, like, a solid 6.5 out of 10, and I kind of get some of the hate, and I think a little bit of it's too much for what it was. But I also understand the worries about the future for the DCU because of it, because, like, we've really only gotten one massively successful project out of the DCU so far. We've got, like, I haven't watched Creature Commandos or Peacemaker Season 2 personally, and most people I know are pretty similar. They've only watched Superman, so this to them is the second project, and the next one's Clayface, and then, like, Lanterns, and Lanterns is looking a bit Clayface I'm looking forward to. I think that could be pretty good, but I don't think it's really going to grab the general audience. So, like, until Man of Tomorrow next year, I think it's a little, I can understand why there's a bit more, like, criticism given to this on the basis of, it's kind of carrying the entire, like, second leg for the DCU as, like, a new project. But that's my general thoughts on Supergirl, and that's that. Moving on, I'd like to talk about possibly the most absurd and out-of-pocket anime in a while. Also, Seth Rogen played the bus driver in that movie. No! What the fuck? Chainsmokercat is bar none maybe the most absurd anime I've seen in modern times. It's also something I've seen online be very divisive in how people view this show, and I kind of get that. It is absolutely every week this season being the weirdest show I have watched, bar none, and I think it is easily the weirdest show I've watched all year. And I think that's why it's kind of fascinating. I've been watching this with friends on call, and I think that if you are going to watch this, that's the way to go, because it is more entertaining when you have a group of people who go, what the fuck every 5 minutes when something disgusting happens. I don't have that much to actually say about Chainsmokercat, which is why it's getting included in this and not getting its own video. It's only like 3 or 4 episodes in. I think episode 4 is out and I just haven't seen it yet. But some of the stuff I've seen in Chainsmokercat is stuff I genuinely didn't think would ever get past the, like, censorship for an anime or a show at all. And I think that's kind of why it baffles me. They really just are doing shit now. And that's kind of my whole opinion on Chainsmokercat. If you want to, like, watch something weird as fuck with your friends, I guess Chainsmokercat's not the worst pick. But it's also definitely, like, weird. I think there's some possibility for some, like, interesting storytelling with Chainsmokercat. Like, just in its own world, but, like, and, like, with the, like, the beast people, I think are what they call, like, the cat girls and stuff. I think there's some interesting storytelling to be done there from what I've heard and seen from the show, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to comment on it, because it is truly the most bizarre anime I think I've watched, like, recently. I've recently been watching through Fate Grand Order, and specifically the anime stuff. I'm currently watching Babylon, but I watched through the, like, First Order and then skip to Camelot, which I'm going to talk about that after because of the way this was adapted. But I don't think I'm going to have a time anytime soon to kind of gush about the Camelot movies, because I do think they honestly were really good. I do really love the two of them. There was definitely a lot they cut from the Grand Order, like the game version of Grand Order, to the movies, and I think that's kind of been the case with Fate as an adaptation, like overall, in almost every single one. But what they condensed it down to was still really good. I still really enjoyed it for what it was. I love the way they did Better Dream. I think it was a beautiful story that was done so well. And just in general, on the general topic of him and the whole, like, how beautiful it is, the animation of these movies are still up there, and it's not necessarily even the best the Fate has had. I think the best Fate's ever had was Heavenspiel for animation. That or maybe even Strange Fake, like, this year. But, I mean, just look at this, like, I'm gonna play a brief clip from the one fight, like, now. Like, look at that, and then, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I also want to briefly talk about the Lion King saber. I do think, for Artoria, this is probably the version that has the least screen time of a version of saber that we got on screen. I still kind of like it. I like the idea of a more wrong version of saber, and not in the sense of like a saber alter kind of gimmick where they're just kind of corrupted by Angra and then pure evil out of that sense, even if saber alter isn't. But like more a sense in like being just morally wrong. I kind of like this version of Saber as an antagonist, and I like the relationship between Artoria and Bedidri, even despite how little time we actually see the two of them together on screen. I just think it came together really well. Honestly, as two solid movies, I just like both of them. I like the second Camelot movie is 100% better than the first, but they're really fun, and the animation's great. Like, the Hassans versus Tristan is a great fight. The Gawain fights is pretty good. Lancelot versus... oh, what is his name? The guy who really hates women. That fight's also really good. I think that's one of the best fights in the Fate franchise, and it's kind of wild how good a lot of the fights in this movie were as a total. Also, just as a small side note, Lancelot might be in the conversation for all-time greatest bum of all time. Genuinely, go back and look at all the fights he's had. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I think Lancelot has a 0% win rate. I think he's actually lost every fight he's had on screen. Da Vinci, I think he technically beat, but that was off-screen, so I don't really want to count that. He's lost every on-screen fight that I can think of that he's been in. But the one last thing I want to talk about with Grand Order is the way they went about adapting it, because I think Grand Order as an anime could have been one of the most popular, like, modern day anime if it was adapted in the right order. I really don't like the way they went about adapting Grand Order, because they skipped like 90% of the story. They adapted First Order and skipped to Singularity, what, 6, I think Camelot is? And there's so much in that middle portion that I think would have still been popular and still well received, and I don't really get why they skipped. I know they initially skipped to Babylon, which is even further, and I don't really get it. I get that the Fate franchise has always kind of jumped around in what it's adapted. Like, we really don't have a proper adaptation for the back end of the extra stuff in Saber's ending is just kind of gone, and what we do have in the Saber route isn't fully there. You Fable just skipped it when adapting Stay Night, like, altogether, and they cut some stuff, like, a lot of stuff out of Heavenspiel, which tends to happen, I think, when it comes to adapting a visual novel. You're never going to get a perfect one-to-one adaptation. I think it's just not possible. At least I haven't seen an example of, like, a perfect visual novel adaptation. But I think this one's weirder, because Grand Order absolutely could have just been adapted, like, in a straight line. It's not like a multi-timeline thing. It is literally just, like, one storyline through all of the main, like, singularities, and then if you wanted to do the Lost Belts and Ordeal Call, you could have. but they chose to adapt it in a way where it became convoluted, and I really don't understand that. There might be something, like, behind the scenes that I don't know about for this, why they did it this way, but it just, to me, it feels like it's kind of random. With how many different Fate adaptations we've gotten, and how many different Fate stories are adapted, it's weird they didn't just start in a line with Grand Order, which is probably the most fast Fate story when you're talking to just the sheer amount of content to it. So, like, I kind of hope they go back and adapt, like, I think it's France up through American Civil War. Because, like, it's either American Civil War or London. I don't remember which comes first. Because, like, I think there's a potential for those to also just be at least good, but you could have, like, a full, complete story that general audiences could watch in a straight line and enjoy on its own. And I think it becomes a lot harder to enjoy something like the Camelot movie, which I think is really good, without some previous knowledge of Grand Order, which has to come from the game. And I think it would have been better if they just straight adapted it. I think it would have made Grand Order more popular than it already is. And I think it would have made the anime for Grand Order more popular, which I would have liked to see. But that's more of a grievance, I think, with the management of Type Moon behind the scenes than it is a grievance of the actual movie. I really liked the movie as it was. I really liked Bed of Dreams. I really liked, like, the Lion King saber. I think all the Knights of the Round Table really shined here, even though, like, half of them were killed off screen. I think everything was, like, it was fun. And I kind of wish we got that for the rest of Grand Order, which is just my small Grand Order thoughts and rant. Anyway, moving off of that, let's talk about the Avengers Doomsday trailer.
And they died.
In my prediction video for All Media in 2026, I was very critical of Doomsday because at the time of that video, and even a little bit now, I was very skeptical with the build-up that was present that Avengers Doomsday could be a good movie. And upon seeing the trailer, I have a bit more faith. One of my biggest worries was how they were going to do Doom. I really thought they were going to lean into RDJ being Iron Man, and they didn't do that, which I appreciate, at least from the view of the trailer. It really does look like this is just going to be Doctor Doom, which I would much prefer than that. Thor is absolutely going to die. I just want to put that out there. Thor is absolutely going to die. I'm calling it now. I think almost everyone has called it just based on the way he's talking in this trailer. He's dead. Also, having him play as the main lead for the Avengers is an interesting decision. Especially with the whole setup of trying to make Sam Wilson the leader, or him being the leader of the Avengers. In fact, I kind of don't like how they treated Sam Wilson's Captain America. They really didn't give him the time to shine as Captain America. They gave him 2 projects, one that was a Disney Plus show. He only really got 1 movie, and he just got it. We haven't had any time to see this man as Captain America, which I guess also leads me into they brought back Steve Rogers, like, almost immediately. Now, I'm not 100% confident that this is actually Steve Rogers, like the Steve Rogers we know, but still, it does feel a little bit of, like, a sting for, like, the fact that we kind of just got Sam Wilson as Cap, and we're finally getting him as Cap, and then they kind of undo it, and I don't really know how I feel about that. I kind of, I'm not big on that. But as for the movie itself, I'm a little bit more optimistic about it now than I was when it was first announced. So, you know, maybe there is some hope for it. I don't got much to say about the Malcolm in the Middle reboot. I just wanted to briefly mention that I watched it all, because I watched all of Malcolm in the Middle this year, and for me personally, I think the whole thing was good. I think it was one of my favorite sitcoms, but I don't got, like, much to say about it that, like, I think was, like, a huge outward gush or anything. I thought all of it was pretty much good. I think, like, the overall positive opinion on the reunion was true. I liked it. I really liked the scene where Stevie falls out of his wheelchair as a distraction. I mostly included this in the video because I wanted to play that clip, and I don't know where else I would have played it in a video.
Will you marry me?
No!
That
doesn't work for everything.
Yes, it does, Malcolm. It works. It works every time. It's the funniest thing ever. Which one of you fuckers let this shit pass? The censor should have shot this shit down. Why did they let this shit pass? Who did it? I want their name! I'm far too deep into this show to drop it now. But genuinely, how did they let that pass? That is single-handedly one of the most, like, I had to pause that shit and stand up for a minute when I was watching it. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Every time they cut back to her, I'm reminded she exists, and it's a great displeasure. I don't like it. It's awful. It's the worst. I like the American LARPer. Moving on. I wanted to end this video on Evangelion because for the 30th anniversary in America and from where I am from Canada, they re-released it in theaters, and I got to go see End of Evangelion in theaters, and I think that was truly I don't know if I want to say unique or like beautiful or something like that. A positive adjective experience. Evangelion has been a personally important anime to me through most of my life. I watched it at an age where I was probably too young to be watching Evangelion, but it definitely affected a lot of what I wanted to do and make and how I, like, view media. So I just kind of wanted to, like, gush about that a little bit. I truly do think End of Evangelion is one of the most unique and special films ever made, and I kind of just wanted to end the video by saying to go watch that. If it's still in theaters for, like, the next day, I think, at least here. I don't know if it's any longer in America, and you can go see it in theaters. If not, it's Evangelion. Go, if you haven't seen Evangelion, watch Evangelion. It's great. Anyway, that's it for this video. I was just rambling about different things I've seen recently. Goodbye. They should remake Evangelion, but every time Kaji's on screen, it plays sexy back.